The more important piece.
Yeah. I love that for you.
Thank you. I love that for me too. You know what's really funny is going to we were talking about this when you were when you were taping football, right, for kids, right?
Oh God, yeah.
It's really funny going to events with your parents. Like my dad never wrestled, right? And so we're at the Class C championships yesterday watching, and he's yelling like supportive and encouraging things that he thinks are also good advice to to the wrestlers, but they end up coming across as like when he's saying them, I'm like, what are you talking about? And like, if they hear you, do you think they know what you're talking about? You know, like,
yeah,
he's like, there are certain things that you would yell, like if someone's trying to pin someone, you'd yell like, and they need to like anchor back and pressure down on them. You'd be like, settle back, anchors, like stuff
settle
like that.
Down.
Meanwhile, my dad's like, settle down. It's like,
settle down.
What? No, wrong cue, Dad. He's like, you got to move him again. It's like, that's too many words to be helpful.
Move them all over.
Well, you got to imagine, like, they probably don't even hear the people in the stands that are yelling things, but it's just funny. And then at one point, I've got some guy behind me that's like, he's yelling. This was only during the finals. I don't know where this guy came from. He wasn't there all day. And then all of a sudden he's posted up behind me. He's the loudest person in the stands. His breath smells like cigarettes. I didn't even turn around to look at him because it irritated me so much that I eventually moved, like just quietly. But the dude's like just yelling. He's yelling the advice to whatever wrestler he's rooting for, like 2 seconds after it's useful. And I'm just sitting there in my brain. I'm like, what is?
He's on a delay.
This would be the worst coach ever. Like,
he's got a Wi-Fi delay going on there.
You should have gone for that takedown, Coach. That was seconds ago.
That was 2 matches ago.
Yeah, Coach. This is a new match now. People just get amped up about sports, and all I could think was like, is this what it's like in the stands at like a football game? Is it just a bunch of people yelling advice toward the field at like the top of their volume, you know, like just like everyone's yelling something different, you know, or it's like relatively similar, but like in a different way. And you're like, and everyone's yelling it like that's what's going to make the difference. It's such a funny thing.
Yeah, because there's one line about, you make sure you get that tackle. That's going to save the game. That's the game winning. That's going to win the game.
By the time you get done saying, make sure you get that, it's already gone.
It's gone. Like, the next down is started. They've
too
already
many
said
words, man. Too many words.
Yeah.
Yep. Imagine if coaches coached that way.
I think that'd be great.
Imagine if coaches were over
reactive,
there and
not proactive.
Like, make sure you look to your left before you get that. The tackle's there now. You got to go get. Oh, it's gone.
You missed it. All right, good job.
Look out for the blitz. They're realigning right now. You're gonna have to hike the ball right now, or we're gonna get a delay. Oh, we got the delay again.
Gotcha.
Like,
it's very reactive coaching style. Make sure you catch the pass. Oh, you already dropped it?
He's coming right at you. He might juke you out. Make sure you get that. Oh, you didn't get the tackle. He juked you out.
Don't let him juke you. Oh, he already juked you.
It's gone. It's gone.
No.
Who is this coach? I want this coach to exist.
It's Mr. Reactive.
Mr. Reactive. Perfect. Let's react to some shit today. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Ready to clap? 3, 2, 1. Perfect. On time. Every time. Welcome back to another episode of the Unpop Podcast. I am your host and captain, Kevin Miner. Todo siempre. With me as always is
Odie Matthews, the chef, cooking up the wonderful reactive content today. They, them.
Perfect. Make sure you get that tackle, Odie. Oh, you missed it.
It's all good.
You missed that tackle, Odie.
Make sure you cut the onion. Oh, you already did.
Cut the onion.
I don't know.
What are you? Are you coaching Chopped?
I'm cooking. Yeah, I'm cooking while
what
I
is
coach.
this? You're standing off to the side. Make sure you cut that onion. Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't cut the onion. It's in the
I'm
boiling
gonna be
water
a,
now.
I'm gonna
The
be a
whole
coach
onion's in there.
for cooking shows.
Why are
Put
you
it in the
doing
oven.
that?
Shut the oven. Good job. You're nailing it. Is the oven set to 400? It is. Good. Is it preheated? You're crushing this. You're crushing this.
That would be a funny reality show, is to see who's better at coaching people to cook than cooking.
I would
you know?
compete in that in a heartbeat, or judge it. Either one.
I would just sit next to the contestant and be like, "Why are you doing that?"
That's horrible
Be
coaching.
like, that's not helpful.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing that?
Just play mental games with them. Oh, you're cutting the
Yeah.
onion like that? Those are your dice
What-
slices? Those
If
are
you
your
get the
dice
right
slices?
person and if they work under the right amount of pressure, they'll probably positively respond to that.
Do you think your chicken's seared enough? That's the sear you're going with? Okay.
You have to hustle. You have to hustle.
You would call
Why are
that
you doing
medium
that?
rare? Okay. Hey.
Okay.
You call it medium rare if you want.
Yep. That looks more like medium smear to me. Medium smear.
What is this bit?
I don't know. I'm just making stuff up now.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking
have
about a
some
lot of stuff today. Yeah, we got some stuff. I really wanted to come in. Some interesting stuff has been coming my way via the algorithm, the vacuous. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play gospel music there because the algorithm's like the new god of the world. Behold, I am the algorithm. Like,
it basically is.
That's how people talk about it. They're like, well, the algorithm.
Yeah, they talk like it's some sentient being.
So I was at church the other day, and we all took communion for the algorithm.
The algorithm gods, please bless me.
And then because
today.
I took communion, the algorithm was just putting like crackers on my feed. Like,
Yeah.
it was like,
Hey, I treat the algorithm like a god.
do you? You're
Yes.
like, you're just scrolling. You're like, yes, thank you, God. Thank you.
No, for my own
algorithm. Thank you
videos,
for
I go
that."
before I publish or schedule. I go, okay, dear algorithm gods of the YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok world plane,
Please accept my hashtag
Please.
tithings.
just let me get some views, please.
Your hashtag tithings.
Yep,
Hashtag tithings.
I love that.
I love that too. I also love that hashtags are like both used but also not as used as they used to be. Remember, like everything used to have 100 hashtags. Now it's like, well, maybe there's 12.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need like 5. But yeah, so one thing that's been popping up, and probably because I've been doing a lot of coaching and because I've been delving more into like topics like this for reading, and so maybe it's just prevalent, but like there's a new culture that's called like anti-work / anti-hustle.
Oh yeah,
That's come my way, which is very timely, I guess. But like it's people like, and there's a positive version, there's a negative version of it. Like, going back to something that we've touched on quite a few times, I think that there's a pendulum of culture that kind of shifts back and forth. Like we're like it's all about hustle culture, and we all hustle real hard, and everyone's motivation Monday and all that stuff. And then we're all burnt out, and we start swaying back the other way. Like it's like to the other side. Let's swing anti-work, anti-hustle. But there's actually as these things were popping up, I had some interesting thoughts. I was kind of, delving more into it, as you do. And I was thinking about, hustle culture actually had its roots, even though, like, because the term is more modern, you might consider it like a 20 teens thing, or even like an early 2000 thing. Hustle culture has its roots in the 70s. Like, that's where it really came from, like the era where at the same time something that you were hearing was like, oh, the hippies are cutting off their hair and joining Wall Street. That's when Tech Valley first started popping up, and like a lot of the the forward movement that brought us to where we are today started in the 70s. And hustle culture came along with that. It was a lot of people who were willing to work more than the 9 to 5 in their office jobs and things like that, and like really hustle, right?
Yeah.
For
Well,
whatever
back
they were
then,
going to get.
You were a lot more rewarded too, because back then your salaries, you could afford a house, you could afford a car, you could, if you worked, if you were born before the 80s and you worked in the 80s and 90s and even into the early 2000s, like, you were going to benefit.
Yes.
Because
Agreed.
of that, the way that it was set up. Now, not the same. If you follow the same things we did in the 80s and 90s, you're not going to have the same results.
Yeah, no. And but like going along the lines of just like the cultural annotations and connotations, what ends up happening there is you've got this hustle culture that goes into the 2000s, and then like the new younger group, like our age group, our demographic kind of picks up on it, and we start doing that. And really where anti-hustle culture started was during the pandemic, when all of a sudden we couldn't hustle, right? Like all of a sudden the world was like, no, don't hustle because you have to be around each other to do that too much. So slow down. Everybody go work from home or take a break, right? And working from home in itself is anti-hustle culture, right? Because hustle culture was like, I'm constantly in work mode, and I'm at work for
I'm at the
X
office
amount of
24
time, right?
hours a day, 8 days a week.
And then we realized, oh shit, we didn't have to do that. Not only did we not have to do that this entire time, now some of us can be hybrid. Now some of us can be work from home. Like I work from home 1 day a week, right?
Yeah.
But in recognizing those things, this new anti-hustle culture came up because people were like, oh, as it would turn out, a lot of the mental health issues I was running into were from me overworking myself and burning out.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And now, so what ends up happening with that pendulum swing is then some people start preemptively diagnosing burnout, right? They're like, they're saying like, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, which is not, tired and burnt out are not the same thing. First off, it's subjective, so I can't tell anybody whether or not they're just tired or burnt out. But I can tell you there's larger signs of burnout than there are for like, just fatigue or tiredness, or like maybe you need a day, right?
Yeah, well, like a good point about that the other day, I think I told you I ended up like napping on the couch at like 5:30, and then at like 8 I just rolled myself into bed and slept until 5 the next. I slept for like 12 hours, and I needed it. And I went into work the next day being like, oh, like I wasn't burned out like I thought I was. I was mentally exhausted, and because I was mentally exhausted, my body was like, we need to just like comatose for about 12 hours, and then we were like, all right, we're good, let's go.
Yeah. And really, I do the same thing. Like sometimes I'll push myself, and I'll have like such a busy week, and that's probably going to happen pretty soon, where my weeks are going to be so freaking busy that like I'm going to need Saturday into Sunday to recoup. Like it's not, because there's not a lot of downtime. Like, but that's because I do a lot of things that I want to do that make me very active, both in work and in my personal life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And, I mean, I work Monday through Friday. I'm in the office every day, but luckily my commute is like 8 minutes, which is fantastic. Yeah. And I love my job. I actually, most of the time, I'm like, I'm not excited to go into work. I'm not like, woo, but I'm not like, ugh. I'm like very much like, oh, cool. Like I'm going to work today. Like, I don't mind. It's very much like that mindset. Yeah. Now, I mean, but yeah.
Where I was really going with this is like, there's a balance between the two, because now people who are going more of the entrepreneur route are also part of like anti-hustle culture. But that if you're going to be an entrepreneur in a lot of cases, right? And once again, this is me just kind of analyzing the patterns that I've seen that need to be in place for certain things to work. This is about the annotations and connotations of adhering to a culture as if it were an ideology, rather than taking notes from different behaviors that exist in culture. But like, if you're part of anti-hustle culture and you're an entrepreneur, you might be like selling yourself short every week, because when you're an entrepreneur, part of that is the endeavor, the risk, the effort, the energy that goes into it. And there will be moments that you feel burnt out. And so you have to find proactive ways to combat that, like having a good support system, having people that you can talk to, making sure that you actually take a day off every week, right? But like taking a day off, or taking like part of a day to just rest, reset, recoup isn't anti-work. Yeah,
no, of course not. And like, my point was that I go to the work Monday through Friday. It's that I agree with you. Like the weekends, like I keep myself fairly busy 7 days a week, but my busyness it depends on the day, right? Like my busyness that I keep myself at work is very different than the busyness I keep myself on in the weekends. Like
yes.
Yesterday, I recorded another podcast with somebody. I did a little bit of YouTube work for like maybe an hour, and then I deep cleaned my apartment for 3 hours. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm in the mood to just deep clean and straighten up everything. And then I prepped snacks, and then I had D&D for 5 hours. Then I watched a movie, and then I went to bed. And for me, some people might be like, oh, well, like you had a pretty relaxing day. I was like, well, I was busy. Like, I was busy all day doing stuff that I wanted to do. Like, I have a list of things on the weekend that I'm like, this is the stuff that I can't do during the week because I'm just too tired or too busy, or I'll burn myself out legitimately.
Yeah.
So the weekends, yes, I still want to stay busy, but it's a different kind of busy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I've structured my work week in a way where Monday I have meetings. I'm getting recapped from the weekend. It's often busy, but not as busy as Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which are pretty much every week they're straight through sprint, because Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's work from 7 to 3, maybe even 4 sometimes. Then I'm in the thick of it because I'm like, training or doing something after work. I usually have some sort of an engagement, and then it's work the next day. Then Friday, what I've done is I've picked that day as like my more administrative day. Like if I'm in the office, my door's open. I'm kind of like, I'm recapping, I'm sending emails, I'm communicating, I'm doing some of the stuff that's like mentally can be intensive, but not as much as the rest of the week,
Yeah.
And that helps me get ready then for the weekend, because the last thing that I do in what I would consider the 5-day work week, which like, we could have a whole other conversation about 5 versus 4. I think I'm on the side of 4, but
me too.
Like
4
at the end of that,
baby.
The last thing that I do is, I've got then Muay Thai, conditioning, and judo. So like, it's a very disciplined and regimented week. And then I take Saturday and Sunday to do a little bit more of what I want. But even on Saturday, there's sparring and stuff. But like going back to the hustle versus anti-hustle culture, is both of them kind of carry these messages that, like, if you're not careful, become ideologies. One creates burnout, and the other one sells yourself short, right? And so when I'm looking at these two things and like the different people, because when it comes to social media, content creation, people tend to pick a topic, pick a niche, pick a theme, pick a motif, and then stick to that. And so whoever's content you are consuming, you are most readily consuming, I would say, a tailored or even curated version of that person's engagement with culture overall, right? So it's very specified, and a lot of people would watch that, interpret it, go, okay, yes, hustle culture, that's the way. And that's how it ends up reinforcing itself as an ideology that perpetuates burnout. Or they're like, oh, yes, anti-hustle culture, that's the way. And it becomes a cult, then and they interpret that only, rather than looking at both, doing compare and contrast, and applying a critical lens, and then saying, okay, cool, well, where are the pros and cons of each of these? And how do I maybe weigh them out and figure out how to balance between the two?
Yeah. I mean, as a content creator, and, in a couple days, the interview with Bo is going to come out. And we touch on this towards the end of our conversation about kind of, it's about, for me, it's a balance, right? Like, I think I very much am hustle and anti-hustle at the same time. Like, I think there are some things that I hustle for, and then there are some things where the anti-hustle in me kind of comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's being human, right? Like, you pick the things that matter, and then you dedicate time and effort to them.
Exactly. And yeah, like, for content creation, I think, it kind of going in line with what you said about like entrepreneurs, like, I have found myself a lot more up until recently. Like, there was so many times where I was like, well, I got to get this video done. I got to do this video, but then I also have to work. And then I also want to do this, but I also want to watch TV, and then I also want to relax. And it became like stressful to do anything other than just work. And the problem with that is then it became even more stressful, because I'm like, well, all I'm doing is working, and I'm not doing anything else that I enjoy. But then trying to do the things I enjoy was stressful, because it was eating up all my time, but I wanted time to relax. You know what I mean? Like it was just like a perpetual
Mm-hmm.
cycle until I was like, oh, okay, like I need to find a healthy balance here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like, where I would capitulate at least part of this thought, or rather recapitulate the majority of this thought. Yeah, even the majority of this thought is the more I see the two different tailored sides of this, this culture perspective on culture, the more I recognize that when it comes down to it, the two more important things that you have are perspective and intentionality, because there are going to be times where you're gonna have to have more of a hustle culture mindset. Like there's stuff, like you only have so much time to be alive, right? You only have so much time to get things done. That resource is going away, only ever going away for you. So like you do have to hustle sometimes. And there are things like there are parts of hustle culture that make a lot of sense, like make sacrifices, make hard decisions, do them faster. And you do that as a favor for yourself because you don't want to waste time. And then after that, be intentional with like your leisure as well. Like leisure is something that you shouldn't be taking for granted because you're always in work mode. Leisure is something that you also are intentional with. You get done what you need to get done every week so that you can then do a little bit more of what you want to do. And that's always been the case.
Yeah.
Even before the modern revolution, even before the Industrial Revolution, like you did what you need to do to survive, right? Like, building a house or, working in the community to have a little bit of like goods or value that you could barter so that you could then, so that when you did have free time, you could actually sit on your porch and enjoy it, right? You comfortably, confidently knowing that there was food in the near future ready for you, and you were like relatively safe barring any catastrophic events, and it's although it's evolved over time and it's infinitely more complex than it used to be, the baseline component pieces of want, need, where you're at, perspective, intentionality, and the balance that we're talking about, they've all stayed the same. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't know. I think not mindset, time management becomes a missing piece for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because, and I've talked to people that, try to fit, 14 hours into a 10-hour day of actual time to do stuff, right?
And you can't.
And
no.
Where, speaking of burnout, where I have talked to other people, not creators, but people that have tried to become creators, whether it be on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or whatever. And they were like, well, I didn't have the time to keep making my content. And then, that conversation progresses and it ends up being more of, oh, well, like I tried to do too much. And because I tried to do too much, I was too exhausted. And that is something that even with time management very much can happen, because it's happened to me even with the best of my time management. But I will say that the more you work on your time management, like the way I look at it and put it into perspective is if you want to wake up at 5 a.m., you're going to have to give yourself at least probably 2 weeks of waking up at 5 a.m. before you're like, oh, this isn't so bad anymore. But 100%. That first day you wake up at 5 a.m., your first thought's going to be to go back to bed. The second day, you're going to want to go back to bed. But it is like, it's consistency. And that's one of my least favorite and favorite things in this realm is like, consistency is so important, but in a lot of ways and in some areas, I believe consistency can also be complacency, and complacency is a killer. So like, it's also kind of finding that line of being consistent in things, but not letting it get you to be complacent.
Yes.
Because then you come home and you're like, well, I'm going to watch. Because, I mean, I've done this. Like, I'm not saying this is something I've done where, like, I need to do something, but I'm like, well, if I watch an episode of this TV show and then I do this and then I do this, well, then I'll do this after. And then by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, I'm like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I'll do it tomorrow. And then that becomes a perpetual cycle.
Yeah. I mean, the way that, like, I said very late last year that I was going to be more intentional with my time, and I have been. And I can say that, like, you know, and you and I talked about this before we were even recording, but like I can say, like, part of that, there is an extreme form of ownership, right? That comes with that. It's very Jocko Willink. It's very like, can this be done now? Okay, cool. Get it done now.
Yeah.
Like, don't make the excuse for it. Don't get it done later. You know, like, can it feasibly be done now without messing anything up? Yeah, go ahead. Do it, right? Like, even if it's going to make you, like, even if it's going to take an extra minute, get it done. It's worth it to get the things done that you need to get done, you know, like on a daily basis, like, you know, going back to what I was saying and tying it into your time management piece, it's perspective. Like, what is the perspective that you're going to take on this? You can call it mindset if you want, but
yeah,
it's your perspective. That's the key component of this, is like, what's the perspective that you're going to take on what you have to do and what you want to do? How are you going to then manage the time that you have available to do those two things? And how are you going to hold yourself accountable for those? How are you going to be intentional with both parts of that time, right? Mm-hmm. That intentionality equals that accountability. It comes out to that in the long run. And that's something that I was thinking about a lot this week, because like one thing that came across my way was like, hey, here's this audition for Into the Woods.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Sondheim musical. And I had to sit down and really critically ask myself, like, do I have time for this? And so I sat down and I was like, okay, I do have the time for it. I can make this time commitment work. But how does that work? And I really had to think about it, because I was like, okay, how do I do this without burning out? Because to manage the time that it would take to wake up early, do everything that I normally do in the morning, get to work, get work done, get done with work, do the things that I want to do to continue progressing myself in my work life, right? And my personal life, like training, the things that I've done, that I've committed to for my own mental, you know, emotional, personal, physical health. And then also be responsible enough to go to these rehearsals. Like, and what that means is going back to, like, I was mentioning, like, that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday block. I looked at those and I was like, oh, those are real full days, but they're already full days. They're already there. So all I have to do is be more intentional up front with that. And the sacrifice that I make in order to do this, which is something that I wanted to do, when I really sat down and like properly thought about it, the sacrifice that I make in order to do this is being more intentional with my time, even on the weekends. It means saying no to certain things, right? And and a big piece of both hustle and anti-hustle culture that I don't think gets touched on enough is the power of saying no to free yourself up to do things that you need to or want to do. It's a necessary component of each part of that, right? And I think neither one of those things, going back to where we started, neither hustle nor anti-hustle culture are mutually exclusive. I think they're actually inclusive. And I think that, like you were saying, you can do both. And in many ways, you have to do both, right? The psychological concept for that is cognitive dissonance. You have to be able to hold both ideas in your mind at the same time, and then work out which parts of them work the best for you this week and make the best choice that you can. And then at the end of it, you have to have the clarity of thought to go back and go, okay, did that work out the way that I thought it did? That I thought it would? Is this going to be can I replicate this again? Would I replicate this again? You know?
Yeah. And what I will say, because I don't want this to get confused with, if you've seen,
I want this to be very confusing. Keep going.
I'm not talking, I don't think you are either. I don't think either of us are talking in like those entrepreneur finance bros that are like, I wake up at 4 a.m. I'm in the gym by 4:30. I'm in the gym for 2 hours. I'm eating 3 meals before 9 p.m. I'm writing in my journal. I'm doing an ice plunge. I'm at the office from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah. You know, like, no, not talking. You don't, that's, if you want to do that, go ahead. Like, if you want to, you know, have a 20-hour day, go for it. Like, if you want to wake up at 3 a.m. because you think your body, I literally saw a clip where this guy was like, I'm at the gym at 3:30 in the morning because that's when your body is most in tune with the Earth's gravity, or something like some crazy statement like that. Like,
that's nuts.
That's insane, right? But like, I do think,
I would look at that guy and be like, okay, that's why everybody's always gone to the gym at 3:30.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, of course, right? Like that's why I'm fast asleep.
That's why that's why our day cycle works the way that it does, right?
Course,
that's why we're usually asleep at 3:30 in the morning, right?
Because gravity's keeping me in bed.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, like, if you want to live your life that way, go for it, right? But I don't think I don't like, and I don't agree with these, and I'm gonna call it what it is. These boomers and these celebrities that are in a privileged position. Like I've seen people like Whoopi Goldberg be like, "Oh, these kids don't want to work hard these days. They don't want to put in the effort." And it's like, that's not necessarily it. It's that back when, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when you put the effort in, when you stayed at the office for 12 hours, you were rewarded and you were compensated because you could afford a new car, you could afford a new house. But now it doesn't benefit me to give anybody more than the 8 hours of my salary, or if I'm scheduled to work, it doesn't benefit me to work 7 days a week if I'm only getting paid for 5. It doesn't benefit me to work a 12-hour day if I'm only getting paid for 8, because maybe, and I think, at my job, my boss would definitely reward me because he's a super nice guy and I work for a smaller company. But I would say on the whole, like my previous job where we're, a $1 billion corporation, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to reward you for putting in twice as much effort for the same outcome. Like, my old job, when I was a trainer, I was flying all the time. I was in 3 weeks out of the month. I was in a new state, new city, training people. And there were so many times where I would be up at like 5 a.m. and I wouldn't get back to my hotel until 8 p.m. And it got to the point where I was like, well, what am I doing? Like, why am I working a 14, 16-hour day and I'm a salary employee? Like, why am I busting my back and twisting my schedule? And where I'm going with this is, that is when it becomes impossible to do the things that you want to do, like we're talking about here. Like, when I was working those 14-hour days for no fucking reason at my old job, I was hurting myself more in the sense that when I got home, there was no way I was going to be able to do anything I wanted to do. And even if I did have the energy, I probably wouldn't have the motivation. And that is where I think hustle culture gets a very bad rap, because there are people out there that are like, well, if you're not putting 16 hours in at your company, like, you're not dedicated. If you're not 100% dedicated to your job. And it's like, no, there's a reason why a recent study, 56% of Gen Z workers in the workforce today prioritize their home life happiness over their job. And I totally agree with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a job and being like, this is a job. It pays the bills. If I'm supposed to be here from 7 to 3, I'm clocking in at 7. I'm leaving at 3.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. We actually, you're reminding me, we did a really interesting, when I was in college, in one of my sports psychology classes, we did this exercise where you had to take these 5 concepts. You had to take life philosophy, personal happiness, family, friends, work, success, like all of these different things. You had to pick 5, right? You know how like that, it's the classic MySpace prompt. It's the new Instagram prompt, like pick 5, right? But our teacher had us do this with these big concepts for our life. They had us pick 5. We had to put them in the order of importance that they were to us, and we could only pick 5. You couldn't put 2 on the same line. If you had omitted one, it didn't mean that it didn't matter to you. It just meant that like the other 5 were that much more important, right? Or even if like the 5th and the 6th were close, like it's just the 5th one out. So you had to make these hard choices. I was the only person in my class who put personal philosophy first. The only one out of 33 people who put personal life philosophy first. And I think that's indicative of my approach to it. And like my teacher very reasonably like singled me out in that class because they were like, Kevin, why did you pick personal philosophy and happiness over everything else? And I was like, well, because if my personal philosophy isn't in line, And if my happiness isn't there, how can I be a good person for my family? The other things I put were like family, work, success, right? Or or family, friends, success. I forget the other three, but I remember the top two were personal, philosophy, and happiness. And I was like, if I don't have those two things in line, if I don't keep myself in check, if I'm not balancing myself out responsibly and properly, then how can I be good in any of those other areas? How can I achieve success? How can I be a good worker? How can I be there for my family and friends if I'm not taking care of myself enough? And I remember like the whole class like kind of like went quiet because no one had even thought that deep. Like they saw the concepts and they took them at face value and arranged them, right? And that's, now I'm looking at these two things, this hustle and anti-hustle culture. These two, let's call them. I'm looking at, it's a dichotomy. That's what it is. It's a dichotomy, right? These two things, and they aren't necessarily opposed, but they're available for critical analysis at our leisure. And the dichotomy of these two things, the way that I'm looking at them and the perspective that I'm taking on them is like, all right, cool. Well, in both of those, like, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're starting your own company, guess what? You have to engage in a certain level of hustle culture. You have to take ownership of that, right? There's going to be sacrifices that you make, and you will face burnout because that's the choice that you made. You picked a thing, right? You chose, I'm going to start my own thing. And like you said, Odie, like a lot of times in the workforce, your salaried paycheck isn't, like if you put in 16 hours, you're not going to get more out of that salary. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting your own thing and you're doing your own thing, congrats, you've chosen hustle culture.
Yeah.
You have, because you can put in 16 hours and that does equal more for you.
You can make more that
because
way.
It's your thing.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I would say, and again, not saying that any of these things are bad. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to do hustle culture and you want to work 20 hours a day to try to get your business off the ground or make money, go for it. Like, if that's your passion. And on the flip side of that, I don't personally think if somebody, right, has a studio apartment and they have a job, let's say they're like an Uber driver or they do like DoorDash, right? And they're like, well, I make enough money to pay my bills. I have enough money to, do my hobby, whether it be like, I don't know, let's say they like go bowling. I don't know, whatever. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong if someone's like, well, I'm just doing the bare minimum in my effort towards this area of my life so I can do nothing, and doing nothing at home, laying on the couch, watching TV, watching movies, playing video games. That is my enjoyment.
What they want to do.
So I do the bare minimum that I can over here. I'm an Uber driver. I do it 5 days a week and I make this much money, and that's more than enough for me, and I'm happy. That is fine. And I'm pretty sick of seeing on it's mainly on TikTok. It's, again, boomers that are like, oh, these people, they don't want to work hard. And it's like, well, maybe that person is working hard for what they want. Maybe them Uber or door dashing 5 days a week, maybe that's not a lot of effort in your eyes, but for them, that's hard work for them. And they're rewarded by being able to, spend 20 hours on Fallout, which that's my dream.
Yeah. For me, like it's becoming, especially as I'm like maturing as an adult. What's happening for me is I'm finding more like, it's okay for me to answer a late work email or to get some stuff done before I'm even in the office. Like, that's okay. But it's okay because I know that I'm doing something that's easing the workload later, right? So like, even if I did own my own business, like I would be like, okay, well, this is the thing that I'm accepting. So it comes back down to that perspective. Like, be aware of your choices, take ownership of the thing that you've picked, and then apply however much of each of those cultural nuances that you need in order to balance yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, like, end of this month, we are in a gigantic 9-day-long home and garden show here in Denver, the company I work for.
Yeah.
Now, these shifts at the home and garden show, like we have a booth, they're anywhere from 8 hours to 6 hours, but they're, they go from like 10 a.m. to like 7 p.m. or 12 p.m. or noon to 6, right? So like not my normal working hours. And my boss was like, hey, I think you'd be like, I really want you as our director of marketing to be at the booth Monday through Friday for not the weekend. You don't have to worry about the weekends. But he's like, I want you to be there. Are you okay with that? And so what that means is now for that week, I will probably be working close to 12-hour days because I'm going to have to go into the office, get my normal workload done, drive over to the convention center and work a booth, right? And now my first knee-jerk reaction was, wow, I really don't want to put in 12 hours a day. Like, I really don't want to do that week. Yeah. Then, shortly after, I was like, well, okay, I guess that'll be a good week for me to set myself up to where I just do my job. I go to the convention center, I do that, and then I'm going to reward myself because that week I'll just make sure that I do everything I need for like YouTube, podcasting, and then when I get home, I'm just going to pick a movie a day and I'm going to watch a movie a day. Like that's going to be my downtime. So as long as I do what I need to do that Saturday before to set myself up, then this week specifically, I'm fine with putting extra hours in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like, that's a really good note. I mean, the more proactive you are with your week, the better off you are, you know?
Yeah. And again, normally I probably wouldn't be too keen on putting in the extra hours, but this is something that I think will be fun. I'm still relatively new and I'm trying to, make a huge impression because I would like to get promoted. I would like to get raises, and showing initiative like that in small, healthy, and that's the key, small and healthy doses of putting in those extra hours for me personally is rewarding because in this, I'm like, I'm probably going to get some kind of, and I don't want to use the word reward like I'm only doing it to get rewarded, but this will have benefits for me down the line. Putting in some extra work.
Will it give you a sense of satisfaction to do it?
Yes, I'm actually, honestly, I'm kind of excited because it's what it is 6 hours of interacting with strangers. And I love to talk to people as an extroverted person. So, like, cool.
Well, that's probably the most important part, right? Yeah. Like, if it's going to, and I think that's where a lot of people are getting burnt out that are entering the workforce now is there's so many jobs that aren't, like, and yeah, a job doesn't have to be fulfilling, but if it's not, your rate of burnout's going to be higher, right? Like, and so like for you, when I asked that question, hey, are you going to get a sense of satisfaction from that? You're like, yeah. That means that it's going to be that much easier for you to not burn out on that, right? You know, for me, I get a sense of satisfaction when I accomplish things during the week and when my work is appreciated. And it's the same for anybody. Yeah. That's all we were ever looking for, right? And hustle culture wasn't guaranteeing that for everyone. It was for some people, and it still does, right? But anti-work culture is someone saying, all right, well, I'm definitely not getting anything out of hustle culture, so that's why I'm adhering to this thing, right? And, going back to where I originally started, like, having either one of those become the ideology, become the culture that you're picking 100%, is, I think, selling it's eschewing your perspective on your work and on work in general and on the amount of fulfillment that you're going to allow yourself to get out of it.
I agree. And I mean, like, to your point about anti-hustle, right? Like, for that week, I'm going to be leaning into hustle culture because I'm, like we said, we put the hours in, it's worth it, it's rewarding, yada, yada, yada. But on the flip side, I know that there are people that we asked to work the Home and Garden show that if we had asked them, their answer would have been no. And the reason why is because they would have been like, well, that's extra work for me, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. And again, I have no problem with that. One person was like, oh, like, honestly, I don't really want to do that because it'll interfere with this side of my job, and like, that's just too much for me. Okay, cool. Like, that's totally fine. On the other hand, we had one person, when I emailed out for volunteers, he called me immediately and was like, put me down for all 9 days, no breaks, every shift. And I was like, all 9, like, straight? And he was like, yep. And I was like, are you sure? And he was like, yep, I want to do it. And I was like, say less, dude. Put him on the board. I was like, you're my lead. You're in charge. People are going to report to you for this because you're going to be there all 9 days. There you go. Even though this is an extremely successful salesman, he's really good. His numbers are great. Yeah. Giving him wanting to volunteer for the 9 days also rewarded him in the sense that myself, his direct boss and the boss of the company was like, well, then you're going to get rewarded by being the lead. You're going to be in charge. Like, here's some extra responsibility for you that we know you're okay with because we're going to make sure you're well rewarded with this.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it sounds like he's got a good perspective on it. Like he's like, yep, I'm in. That's what I want.
This guy apparently didn't take a single day off last year. Well, like, except for his, like, you know, he took days off, but, like, he didn't call into work. He didn't take a vacation. Like, you know, he worked he doesn't work a Monday through Friday. He works, like, a Wednesday through Monday or something. Cool. Or Wednesday through Sunday. And apparently, outside of his normal, like, 2 days off that, you know, you get, he didn't take vacation, didn't take time off because he is a salesman and he has the hustle culture mind where he's like, well, if I'm not at work selling, I'm not making money.
Well, he's right.
And he's totally right.
Yeah, now, when you do sales, like that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, and there's salespeople out there that I'm sure that are like, I'm working bare minimum as long as I get the money I need. But this guy's like, I want to be rich. And hey, why not?
Let him be.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Yeah. Well, it sounds like he's very self-aware, right? At least I hope he is, right?
Yeah.
He's taking care of himself, even though he's got like that hustle mindset. Hopefully, he doesn't get burnt out. It doesn't sound like
his name is Kevin. Funny enough.
That is funny.
Yeah.
Kevin's like, as far as I know, Kevin's like to have projects.
Yeah.
You know, like most of the Kevins I know, especially including myself, I like to have a project all the time. You know, that's why I auditioned for Into the Woods.
Yeah.
But here's a really good thing that I did. I put down all of my conflicts and my preferences. And I said to myself, okay, I might, as much as I want to do, just between you and I want to do a Stephen Sondheim musical because, and not only that, I would like to do this one. First off,
you said between you and I, but like you just said it on the podcast.
Yeah,
so everybody that listens is gonna
whatever.
Everybody
you know
else, plug your ears during that part, please.
Nobody listen to this. Odie, between you and I, there's so like I want to do a Sondheim musical. I don't think the part that I tried out for Cinderella's Prince, so Prince Charming. Mm-hmm. I personally don't think past, because I'm 37. I don't think that you should play Prince Charming past 37. Like, I don't think you should do that. I think it's a younger role. I think this is the last time I could probably even get away with it, right?
Let's see.
Because we were just talking about the Fast
played that role.
Probably.
Let's find out.
35, 38. I don't know. Yeah, look it up. But so like I signed up and I put in all my conflicts and I accepted. I said to myself, I was like, you might not get this part because of those. And
he's 34.
34. See? Okay. I would not cast him as Prince Charming now.
Mm-mm.
Right?
Well, he's
and this was like
now,
2014 when it came out, right?
2014.
Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's much older now. He's a decade older. He's 44.
44, yeah.
You don't do like and I was explaining this to a friend of mine. And I was like, listen, I'll try out for this. Like the only reason I would try out for Prince Charming now is because I would not play Prince Charming again. Mm-hmm. Like I would not, like 38. Nope. Not trying out for that part. And part of it is you have to be aware of this. Like if you're ever going to do community theater or like, you know, a theatrical endeavor of a smaller scale, is a lot of times, depending on the varying ages that try out for these things, like you've got people age ranging from like 18 to 45, you know? And so for me at 37, I'm like, all right, Prince Charming's pushing it. Like you got to start trying out for being like older characters.
You're going to be Cinderella's dad in the next one.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm thinking is you're more of a baker, you know, you're not. But yeah, so I tried out and I really, looking at the schedule, I was like, my schedule is about to get tight. It's going to be in hustle mode because I have other things that I'm trying to accomplish. I have other goals and commitments. So that means that I'm busy, you know? And when I looked at that, I was like, all right, am I willing to sacrifice that time to be that busy? And the answer was yeah. Like, I think it would be fulfilling. But then after that, you know, and I'm going to probably not try out for anything else for a little bit, you know, like once again. And the only reason, like my friend Kelly, bless her, she had messaged me 3 different times to audition for this part. Well, not this part, but this musical, right? And the first time I was like, well, I'm kind of taking a break from stuff, right? And then the second time, same answer. I was telling other people, like, I'm taking a break from theater. And then the third time when she asked me, it kind of came down to like, well, hasn't it been 2.5 months already since Addams Family? Like, that's a break. Like, so I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna swallow my. Yes, you're right. Yeah, that's a break. 2.5 months is a break. Let's see if we can do something, right? Yeah. Speaking of hustle culture, some people who've got to hustle away from a bomb in the first episode.
Oh, right.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I watched the first two.
You did?
Yes.
Me too. I watched the second one today, actually, this morning.
Started the third episode, but then I was just like, oh, man, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Did you start the third episode?
So, yeah. What did you think about Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much, based off the 2.5 episodes I've seen, if I'm going to enjoy the direction, because... And minor spoilers, but I'm also guessing. So keep that in mind.
Spoilers.
The first 2 episodes very much makes it feel like, and I was kind of hoping they would keep it, as they aren't going to be romantically involved. I was kind of hoping they would be more like best friends. Okay. And then the start of the third episode, they're like very much hooking up lovey-dovey in a relationship. And I can already tell that this is going towards they're going to fail because they're in love with each other. Then they're going to go on the run from the agency that they work for. And then they're going to have conflicts with each other because they like each other, but they're the reason that each other failed. And it's going to be like a cat and mouse game. And I got to be honest, that isn't as interesting as two people forced to play a couple, working for an agency, carrying out missions. I feel like...
Did you see the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
The 1990s with the guy from Quantum Leap, or the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie movie from 2005?
Both.
Scott Bakula one?
Both.
So, I mean, obviously there's a huge difference between this one and the movie, because in the movie they're competing agents who have to then take out each other, which is an interesting concept. Doug Liman was the director on that one, actually.
In the movie, they're both not even aware.
Yeah, exactly.
Agents. Yeah.
The 90s one with Scott Bakula is in the similar vein to this one, where...
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
And look, I understand if this is how it's supposed to go, this is how it's supposed to go, but I kind of liked, and I thought they were setting it up with Paul Dano's character, that maybe Jane was going to kind of be like, oh, I like him. How can I be with somebody if I'm technically married? Like, and that might set a conflict up that maybe John likes Jane, but Jane doesn't like John, and Jane wants to be with other people. Like, to me, and I mean, again, it's all subjective. I think that that's a more compelling storyline than them immediately falling for each other and being like fuck buddies. Like, I don't know. Like, and again, I'm only on episode 3, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I liked where it was going in episode 2, and I'm a little disappointed of where it picked up in episode 3.
Okay. Well, I messaged you and said that I was digging it, but it's because it wasn't the Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where they're like we didn't even know that we were secret agents. You know, like,
that's stupid.
And I like how like grounded and down to earth it is, and it's not necessarily just an espionage thing. And even the espionage stuff is very like I feel like, once I'm going to use this word, grounded, right? Like, it's not like here's our crazy awesome weapon,
hack into the terminal, and satellite
like,
ping.
Yeah, and like they're trying to figure out these missions while they do them. And in the first episode, qualified. Like watching them just converse and do reconnaissance together and like really get their bearings, I was like, oh, cool, this is nice. Like, they feel more real and human as characters.
Yeah.
And I think for that alone, like the acting and even I would say the direction, because I've enjoyed both episodes so far.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. Like, I thought it was good, and it's a refreshing take on espionage or, you know, like spy thriller. Because both of them just sign up for this job. They're just like,
they're not very
I just want to
qualified.
do this job.
And I kind of like that aspect a lot. I mean, I'll watch this whole series because I love Donald Glover. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm gonna watch it because he is my favorite part of this show. And again, I love Donald Glover.
Yeah,
but yeah, I like. Maya
Erskine's great too.
Yeah, I don't know her from a lot of stuff other than the voice of Mizu and Blue Eyed Samurai, if I'm being honest. But she's awesome.
Great.
She's great. It's funny because in the first episode I watched about 25 minutes and then I was like, this isn't doing it for me. I'm going to turn this off and do some other stuff. But I was like, I'll come back to it. And it's really funny because I texted you that and then I came back to it and literally 5 minutes later the bomb goes off. And I was like, if I had just, waited 5 more minutes, this show would have gotten a lot more interesting. I think my biggest complaint with this show right now is it's too slow. There are too many
that's
scenes.
What I like about it.
See, and like I totally
That's
understand
what
why
I
people,
like about it.
I get why people would appreciate that, but like in episode 2, the scene with John Turturro where they're pretending to be dogs for like a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes of actual screen time. I'm like,
that was great. What are you talking about?
See, and like I understand it, but I also feel like where it picks up in episode 3, like still not a lot has happened because it's so slow.
That's fine.
I don't think there's anything wrong with a slow burn. I think The Bear is a very good example of a slow burn. Like that first season is pretty slow when you think about what they're working towards and how they get there.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like a show can be too slow, and I'm not opposed to a slow burn, but this one, a lot of the time when I'm watching, I'm just like I know this is going somewhere, but like I kind of just want you to go ahead and like maybe move it along a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
It's funny that's exactly what I like about it is it's slower. There's not a ton of action yet. I like that they're both getting to know each other, spying on each other, messing with each other, but not in any like crazy overt way. I think they've done a really good job of playing the drama in a more real way. And like you said, even in the scene where they're like pretending to be dogs, like, that it took some time. Like you're really rooted in that moment, Yeah. And the miscommunications that they have and like just the way that they both approach problems differently. Like I think it's a really nice commentary upon people who are looking for a relationship and also people who are looking for like meaning or like, what they want to accomplish in life. Like both of them are kind of looking for all of those things. And they end up in this situation where they're in this, like, not like at first, definitely like a forced relationship. And like, now they're kind of realizing, oh, well, maybe we can make this a real thing. And then, they even set it up like the first scene, you see a Mr. and Mrs.
I was going to talk
Smith,
about that.
Right. And like, they set you up. They're like, here are the stakes. This is a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they are on the run. and they're both tired of running.
And I'm guessing they're on the run. And see, this is what I'm worried about. And again, this is me. I'm worried that was basically just a teaser for what's going to happen to Donald Glover and Maya Erskine's character, where they're going to fail and then go on the run from the agency. And it's just going to kind of be the same thing, which, again, is fine because we obviously met the first Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which, by the way, what a weird choice to cast Alexander Skarsgård and then kill him off in 5 minutes. Spoiler
Love
alert,
it.
I guess.
Love it.
I'm fine with that, but I was like, oh, Alexander Skarsgård. Oh, half your cheek is gone. Oh, you're dead.
The cameos in this show
are great.
Love it.
And I'm a huge cameo fan. I love, one of my favorite cameos of all time is 21 Jump Street with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum when Johnny Depp and the other guy from the original show up and then immediately just get gunned down. They just immediately get gunned down. I love that.
So great.
But I'm wondering, right, and why I'm intrigued on this show is the people that hunt them down, right? We see this in the very beginning. There's 2 of them. I'm wondering.
Is there 2?
Yes, there was one in the car and the sniper.
There might have been more.
There was only 2 that we saw. So going off of the knowledge of that we only saw 2.
Yeah.
I have 2 theories. One, that is another Mr. and Mrs. Smith team that strictly exists to hunt down rogue Mr. and Mrs. Smith teams. So they're going to pop up.
Or it was just a mission.
Hang on. Or they're going to pop up later to hunt down Donald Glover and Maya Erskine's John and Jane. Or, and this is what I'm really hoping for, that was Donald Glover and Maya Erskine, and that is one of their missions towards the end of the show or something. Like, I think
That'd
that would
be
be
cool.
so. I think, and again, I don't want to get my hopes up for it, but if that turns out to be another Mr. and Mrs. Smith like team or something, even the ones we're following, that would be cool.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely like it. I like the way that they're being like. I like that they get the little like, hi, here's the mission, here's the update, and then at the end it's either like mission complete or mission fail, right? And that's it. Like it's complete or fail. That's it. You have to follow these criteria. You either complete it or you fail. You're a team. Here's you're employed here for as long as you're employed here, whatever, right? Yeah, I love it. I mean, honestly,
it's got potential.
I'm digging it. I'm digging it.
I think I just need to move past. I guess I just ultimately didn't want them to be in a relationship because
it's called Mr. and Mrs.
I think I personally was kind of hoping it would be more of a conflict of them being in a relationship to to everybody they meet, but wanting to be with other people. Like that was a conflict I was hoping for, but I just need to move past it and see what happens with the show because I'm sure it's going to be great. Yeah. I mean, Ron Perlman's in this at some point.
Oh,
I saw him in the trailer. Like,
yeah. No, I think it's good. And, like, I haven't watched a good espionage thing in a long time, So, like, and you were talking about going to see Argyle this weekend. You didn't go see it. So I was like, I'll watch Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That would be good.
I am going to see Argyle at some point. It'd probably just be during the week when the snow's gone.
Yeah. Espionage films, there's only so many tropes you can follow in espionage, right? Like, you watch Slow Horses. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is, like, slower horses. Yeah. But, like, there's only so many things that you can do, right? It's like we got a team and there's a job and the job, maybe something goes wrong with the job or there's something that we didn't account for and now we gotta account for that. Like that's the plot all the time.
And I mean, I love a good espionage show because and we've talked about this, but I think that there are some concepts that work better as a mini series, and keyword there is mini series, one and done. And there are some concepts that work really good in a 90-minute format. And I think that's I'm excited that this is, what is it, 6 episodes, 8 episodes?
Do you think Mr. and Mrs. Smith are more about hustle culture or anti-hustle culture?
They strike me as anti. They just I mean, Donald Glover
really
literally has a line.
I was going to say hustle culture because they're in it for the money, baby.
Well, I was going to say they are in it for the money, but at the same time, Donald Glover is also like, we have a pool. Like, they strike me as like, I'm going to do this job, and then I'm going to enjoy as much of this free, amazing 3-story New York townhome with a composter on the roof and a movie room and a pool as I can.
As you should. I mean, I don't know how you sign up for a job like that and then immediately don't go, oh, yeah, they'll probably kill me when I'm done working for them.
Well, that's it. That's the other.
That's scene. Like my first thought is like, why? Like, there's so many shows or movies where like someone signs up for like a secret organization that they're now part of with like secret strike teams and stuff, and it's like, why are you not thinking immediately like I'm gonna get knocked off if I ever leave?
That's the thing. Like, when they made that pact, I was like, that's foreshadowing. They're like, let's make a lot of money and then leave. And I'm like, you mean make a lot of money and then
be on the run
and then
forever?
Stay. But like, you're just gonna stay.
Yeah.
It's
or
good.
One of them will break the pact. Who knows?
I think.
It's a good show.
I would put it at a 6.5 out of 10.
I'd give it slightly higher, 7.5 for me. But that's because I like the pace. I like the slow pace. I like that they're having these conversations that are like they're meaningful and they have to do with the plot, but they don't necessarily move the plot along. They kind of just like give you an idea of like how this person's thinking at this moment in time. Like I think it's good. I really, really, really like the human element of the show.
They're doing something that you and I talk about a lot. They're not telling. They're doing a nice job of having these characters show us who they are through natural conversations, like you're saying, and then also showing us how they behave in certain situations.
Exactly.
It's a lot of telling and showing. And I do appreciate, again, going back to like my favorite example of this, Rebel Moon, where we just are told all this stuff about characters but never actually see them do anything about it.
Here's my backstory now, 3/4 of the way through the film, so you know and understand everything I do for the rest of the film. Yeah. But no, it's not bad. I would check it out if you have Amazon Prime. Plus, there's no ads right now for me on Amazon Prime, which is cool. Yo, all right. Wait, I'm going back to the high seas, baby. I can't emphasize enough. Pirating it's back.
It's the future.
I'm not. Yep. I've VPN and pirating. I can't like. Netflix is like, here, pay fucking $25 to share your password with people or whatever. Hulu's about to crack down on passwords. Disney and like Max are all doing the same thing. And then they're making you pay to not have ads. And it's like, but that's why I originally got you. And they're like, yes, but now it costs more to not have ads.
Cable with more steps.
It's cable with more steps. It's so fucking dumb, which is I've finished my 4th book this year already because I'm so sick of that. Like, and I don't like, even with YouTube, like I would sign into YouTube and there were just more and more ads. And I was like, I'm fucking done with this. Like, the reason that I moved over to these other mediums was because I was sick of advertising. And I get it. That's where you make money. Yes, people need to make money. Okay, fine. You're making money.
We
but
get it.
I'm just going to participate less because that's not what I want. Like, I don't want to pay fucking $4 a month to not have ads on a thing that I originally didn't have ads on. Like, it's so dumb. So Pirate Bay, we're back, baby. We're back in session. I'm a pirate again. Captain Kev is on his ship.
It's funny.
And I'm just downloading shit again.
I don't care. I talked to Bo about this, and we both kind of were like, we would rather either just like, if I want to watch a movie and I don't have the streaming service, I'll just pay like the $3 to rent it, or how you and I have talked about buying it. And now we've learned our lesson not to buy it digitally, you buy it physically.
Yeah, you can't, because it ends up costing the same physically. Like, if Mr. and Mrs. Smith comes out digitally and physically, you can bet I would just like, and I liked it, I would just buy it physically. Yeah, because then I can watch it whenever the fuck I don't have to worry about it going away from the streaming service forever, right?
Yeah.
Fucking it's so ridiculous that like the great like unbundling of things happened, and now they're being rebundled, repackaged, and ads are coming back, and like it's just so it's one of the many things that makes me go, okay, well, that's something that I'm just going to avoid engagement with, but like ultimately at the end of the day, one of my favorite pastimes is like reading, watching movies. Like, everybody loves to be entertained. We love stories, right? So for me, like at the end of the day, I'm still, I'm still logging in and watching it. And even if I don't have it, other people in my life do. So I'll probably log in on their stuff every once in a while and watch it. And but like ultimately, do I like it? No.
I'm only in this realm. Right now, I am only starting TV shows if I know for a fact that I actually want to watch it. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
too many to watch.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith has been on my list since it was announced. The Fallout show in April is on my list. Umbrella Academy season 4 this year is on my list. The Avatar: The Last Airbender show is on my list. But I'll be honest with you, like, I was scrolling through Apple TV, and I was like, oh, this is the Austin Butler World War II plane one. Oh, I should finish Monarch. Oh, I should finish this. And I'm like, you know what? No, because if I haven't gotten to it already, then I don't want to. So
we're back to time management.
Which right now,
speaking of time management, I poorly managed my bladder. I have to pee right now. I have to go.
Go.
Okay.
I'm just going to talk about this. What I was going to say, while Kevin goes to the restroom, the El Baño, if you will, is like, there are a lot of TV shows to watch. And I think everybody at some point wants to try to watch these TV shows because they look interesting, they could be interesting, and maybe they are great. But I think it's also important to pick and choose the ones that are actually the ones you really want to watch and consume. Kevin and I talk a lot about consumption and being careful with your consumption. And for me, and you'll hear in the jams shortly, like, I would rather go to the movie theaters, which is what I'm doing this year, and then also being very careful about what TV shows I start, because I have a tendency to start a TV show and then it can be kind of hard to finish them because it might be 10 episodes, it might be 8 episodes, maybe they're 45 minutes, maybe they're an hour. Some TV shows, an hour are like an hour and 15 an episode. So I don't know, I think being careful about which TV shows I start personally to make sure that I have the time to finish them, and if I'm hooked on the show, I want to actually finish it out. God. That is important to
I'm
me.
Back.
And
Jesus.
Kevin's back. Perfect timing. I just finished my thought.
My bathroom is like 10 feet away, and it like like when you're going so long that you're like, wow, This is a long time. Like
I
was just standing there the whole time. I was like, this is I'm very glad I went now.
I drank coffee, so maybe we should move into jams because I have something else to take care of.
Oh, there you go, baby. Yeah. Well, I was gonna jump into that and say, what is your jam?
So I was just saying to the lovely listeners while you were going to the bathroom, long story short, I'm being careful about what TV shows I start because, again, time management, and also I start too many TV shows and lose interest. So if I say I'm going to start one, I'm watching it all the way through, which is why I'm being careful which ones I start. So my consumption now is I've been playing Fallout 4. I really like a good game. Fallout is incredible, dude.
I like Fallout 4. That's a good one.
I fucking love Fallout. And what I love about this is, and what I've been doing is, not
That's
every
the one with
day,
the giant Abe Lincoln at the end, right?
Liberty Prime.
Yeah.
I think so. It's been a while
it's
since
like
I've played
Abe Lincoln's
through.
head, isn't it? Yeah, it's
yeah,
Liberty Prime.
That's Fallout 3. That's in the DC setting.
No, it's giant Abe Lincoln or I don't know. It's a giant
either
robot.
Way. I haven't played Fallout 4 in a while, but what I love about a game like this is I can log in, I can jump on, and I can go, okay, I'm gonna go investigate this building, and then maybe that takes me 30, 45 minutes, and I go, okay, that's it for today. Yeah. I'll chip away tomorrow. Or maybe not even tomorrow. Like, I don't even play every day. Like, but when I jump on, I can play for an hour. I can play for 20 minutes and just jump on and do a couple things real quick. I love that it does not matter. This game is going to be at my pace, and it's just it feels nice to have something that I'm not like what I was saying, like I started this TV show and now I'm on episode 2 and it's like, okay, well now I have free time. Well, I guess since I have 45 minutes, I should probably watch episode 3 because like I started this show, and I hate that feeling of like, well, now if we're going to watch something, well, it has to be this thing. But if I'm not super dedicated or interested in it.
Well, you and I have talked about this before. I'm totally cool dropping shows. Like if a show's not great in the first episode, I don't have to wait. I'll let somebody else summarize it to me. I'm more than happy to let people who have enjoyed something share that joy with me rather than me having to watch it. Like sometimes people are like, oh, you got to watch this show. And I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to have the time. Tell me the things you loved about it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I like week-to-week shows. Honestly, like I can't believe I'm going back because I used to be against them. I'm like, oh, they dropped all 8 episodes? Cool, I'm going to binge it. But now I'm like, oh my God, it's so nice to know that like if I start a TV show, I only have to really worry about watching it once a week. And it's kind of cool to have that like time period in between. Like, I don't know. That's my jam. Fallout 4, love it. There's new expansions. I'm excited to get to them eventually.
Nice.
Looking forward to it.
My jam is a show that I had only seen posts about the artwork from it and some of the quotes, and it looked so weird and beautiful and interesting that I was just like, yep, I'm going to watch this. And it's called Scavenger's Reign. It was an Adult Swim produced show. It's animated, but it's sci-fi. It reminds me of like, I don't know. It reminds me of like Cartoon Sushi back in the day on MTV. I don't know if you remember that, Odie, but like that was like late night cartoon stuff on MTV. It's like, it's really, really good. It's about a ship that crashes in a system. There's all these weird like animals and monsters and bugs and stuff. Yeah. And like, it's really, really interesting. And you're following these characters as they attempt to get back to their ship, I'm pretty sure. Like there's a lot going on, but it's really, 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 really cool. Like you have these disparate, right? So these separated individuals. There's a guy who's like by himself he's got like a beard and he looks all ragged when you first meet him, and he's like in this really dangerous part of the world. Well, all the parts of the world are dangerous. And then there's an unlikely duo of like an older gentleman who I think was the captain and a lady who was on the ship. And then there's this other woman with an AI, like a robot, right? Named Levi. And the woman and Levi, as they're traveling, like Levi starts to have more than just like robot thoughts and feelings. And it's really cool how that unfolds. And like the unlikely couple of the guy and the girl are always Like they're trying to figure out how to work together to survive and what actually does work for them in their survival. And then you've got this other dude who's like really ragged and like in this like desperate survival type situation. And it's really cool to see how all of them are approaching this and dealing with like their past, and just like it does a really good job of balancing out like the flashbacks that give you the necessary information about who these people are with like the present day adventure that's currently happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm about to check this out. It's on Max. It's got really good ratings.
Does it?
Yeah, it has an 8.7.
Oh, hell yeah. No, so, I honestly just saw some art and I saw a couple people appreciate it, and I was like, yeah, I'll check that out. And the episodes are only like 24 minutes, so that's really nice. So I watched a few last night.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
And that's all we got for this week. That's it. We're just done with the podcast.
It's done.
It's all. What are you doing today? What are you up to now?
Well, it's Sunday. So,
it's Sunday.
I'm gonna have to
check football.
No, God, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna have to meal prep, grocery shop.
Same.
And nothing.
Oh, great.
Yeah, today is a
little bit of anti-work culture.
Well, I'm good for YouTube. I'm mapped out for YouTube for 2 weeks.
Nice.
So now I get to kind of just work on stuff. I'm finally starting my video essay on Fast and Furious. Like finally starting it. So I wanted to make sure I had some room where if I only wanted to work on it for like an hour a day for the next 2 weeks, I wouldn't feel like, oh my God, I gotta get this done right now, you know?
Okay.
So that's my plan.
Nice. I'm going to do a little bit of nothing today as well, and probably all the same stuff you just said, man. I mean, honestly. Yep. Yeah. That's it. It feels like a good day to do all that stuff.
Yeah, well, it rained and then snowed, and then it got down to like 10 degrees, so the snow is like ice. So it took me like 30 minutes to clear off my car this morning.
Damn.
So, fun.
Damn.
Yeah, I hate it.
Good.
But it'll melt because it's now it's 40. Yeah, it's 40 degrees and sunny right now, so it's gonna melt.
Yep.
Welcome to Colorado.
Welcome to just life in the 21st century, baby.
Yeah.
That's what's up. It's ice and then it's melting, and then it's ice and then it's yeah. That's how it goes. Well, I hope you have a phenomenal day. I hope our listeners have a phenomenal day. I hope anybody listening to this right now, I hope you have the best day that you could possibly have. I hope that you don't feel burnt out. I hope that you don't feel like you're not getting enough you time, right? I wish you nothing but the best, viewer people.
I wish you nothing but the worst.
Odie!
We gotta have that.
Why?
The counterbalance here.
I hope that the best wins out.
Me too. See you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.